Welcome back to Capitol Square. We welcome now the Republican nominee for the United States Senate, State Treasurer Josh Mandel. Treasurer, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
We sort of, the last time we got together, I asked you out of the gate at the very first question whether you were a candidate for the U.S. Senate. And it was a little dicier then because you were still exploring it and what have you. So let me ask you right here out of the gate again. You are a candidate for the U.S. Senate.
I am.
And you want to go there because why?
A few reasons. One, over the past decade, in Washington, as Sherrod Brown has been there supposedly representing the people of Ohio. Back here, we've unfortunately lost over 500,000 jobs and 3,500 factories. I believe the focus of folks in Washington and here in Columbus needs to be on economic growth and job creation. While there are so many other issues that are being debated and discussed around our country, the main three issues we're going to talk about in our campaign is jobs, jobs, and jobs. And that's where my discipline from the Marine Corps comes in handy, because they're going to try to take me off that message. Sherrod Brown's going to want to talk about everything except jobs because of the abysmal record he has on that issue. But we're going to stay there. We're going to stay disciplined and keep on that message of job creation, economic growth. When I talk to Democrats, Republicans, and independents around the state of Ohio, that's what they want elected leaders focusing on. And so my focus and the reason I'm running is to try to create a better environment in Ohio for economic growth and job creation.
You know, Governor John Kasich at the helm puts you, and I've asked this of other Republicans, in sort of, I don't want to say an awkward position, but a politically interesting position. Because the governor now is talking quite regularly about what he's done to help in this past year to contribute to this unemployment rate in the state that we see dropping. And this overall feeling, I think, in the state of Ohio that jobs are coming back, that things are getting moving again. So, I mean, how do you walk that kind of fine line where you've got the Republican governor saying things are getting better and jobs are coming back, where you have to run against a Democratic incumbent basically with the message you just said of things aren't moving fast enough and we don't have enough jobs?
Well, I think Sherrod Brown's record speaks for itself. The over 500,000 jobs we've lost during his past decade as a D.C. politician, and the 3,500 factories we've lost over his past decade as a D.C. politician. Right now, what we need in Washington is a new brand of leadership, fresh ideas, a new generation of leadership. People who maybe sound a little different, look a little different. You know, I'm 34 years old, but I look like I'm 19. Mm-hmm. We think that's a strength. We think my youth and my energy and my being an outsider running this insurgent campaign against the Washington establishment is an asset and a strength.
Do you get the sense, though, that the economy is improving, and do you worry that it kind of puts you in a position, and I would say this of whatever party is running against an improving economy, does it put you in the position of kind of cheering against it, at least through the election period, because you want to make the case the economy could be so much better?
No, I'm cheering for the economy to improve in Ohio.
Is it your sense that it is?
I hope the economy is improving in Ohio. You know, when I travel throughout the state, you hear different things in different parts of the state. There are still many families who are unfortunately still struggling. A lot of senior citizens who are on fixed incomes who are struggling. One of the main problems I see in Ohio, and frankly, this was one of the reasons I originally ran for the legislature, was that our state was exporting kids and grandkids. There's all these young people, the kids and grandkids of Ohio who grew up here, who left to go live in other states. And I think as leaders, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, we need to do a better job of keeping the kids and grandkids of Ohio here in the state. Because you think about it, we spend all this money educating people in K through 12 education, higher education. You know, I'm a product of public schools, went K through 12 public schools, went to Ohio State for college. You spend all this money educating people, and then a lot of them leave and go to other states and sometimes even other countries. We got to do a better job, I think, of keeping young, hardworking, talented, intelligent Ohioans here in Ohio.
You've criticized Senator Brown, and I want to quote this here, for being hyper-partisan, divisive, and a rubber stamp voting with President Barack Obama 98% of the time. But I think back to Senator Mike DeWine, who I think only voted with President George W. Bush 90% of the time, and he ran into a big problem of being called a rhino. A Republican in name only. He became a moderate because he didn't vote the Republican line all the time. So let me just ask you, what percentage of the time do you envision voting with the Republican? If you're attacking Senator Brown for being with Democrats 98% of the time, how much free space are you going to have, truly, to kind of do your own thing and not vote the party line, knowing that that rhino label lays out there for you if you go against the party establishment too often?
I would never judge myself on a percentage of voting with a political party. I actually think that's one of the main problems in Columbus and Washington. While so many Well, the American citizenry and citizens throughout Ohio are becoming more and more independent-minded. Unfortunately, you have too many politicians in Columbus and in Washington who have come to care more about the D or the R next to their name than they do about doing the right thing. I won't vote based on party. I'll vote based on principle and what I think is best for my constituents here. You know, my boss is not some political leader in the Republican Party. My boss is 11.5 million people here in the state of Ohio. And the day that some gray-haired guy who's a Republican Party boss in Washington puts his hand on my shoulder and says, listen, son, you better vote for this legislation or else I'm going to kick you off this committee, or you better vote for this legislation or else I'm going to shut down your fundraising. I will look that gentleman squarely in the eyes. I will tell him, you are not my boss. My boss is the people of the state of Ohio. I've been through tougher stuff than this.
Let's cover a few other issues as quickly as we can here. What is your gut intuition of where the Supreme Court will come down on this federal health care law?
My hope is that they find it unconstitutional. I think the federal government's takeover of health care is bad for a variety of reasons. First, it injects a federal bureaucrat, a faceless federal bureaucrat, in between us as citizens, us as patients, and our physicians. We don't want someone in Washington who we don't even know who works for the government making decisions for us. Those decisions should be made between a patient and their physician. Secondly, it's going to hurt senior citizens. The federal government takeover of health care will include cuts to Medicare. Third, it will be bad for small businesses. It will be bad for economic growth here. Fourth, it'll be bad for quality of care, bad for access to care. This legislation put into effect will take the American healthcare system and take it down the path of Canada and Europe. We don't want that. I mean, you hear these stories about in Canada and Europe, people have to wait in line for 6 weeks to see a doctor, 3 months to have a surgery that might save their life. That is not America.
I know you mentioned at the top, jobs, jobs, jobs. However, there's a reality here that some of these other issues have been introduced, the Blunt Amendment just a week or so ago. What's your take on that? Let me ask you directly, would you have voted for the Blunt Amendment? And then more generally, is that an issue that you think is going to hang around to talk about and debate with Senator Brown through November?
Sure. Well, I think Senator Brown is going to want to discuss any issues not related to jobs. So on this issue, I believe very strongly in the Constitution. I believe very strongly in religious liberty, and I believe that the Catholic Church or other religious institutions should have the right to follow their doctrine and their teachings. At the same time, I believe that American citizens should have the right to purchase birth control if they so choose.
And Blunt Amendment, have you taken a position on that?
You know, I'm not in Washington right now. I'm not a D.C. politician. Sherrod Brown is. And one of the main contrasts in this political race is going to be that he's been running for political office since Richard Nixon was president. He's been in Washington for 2 decades. I'm the outsider. I've never lived in Washington, never worked in Washington. We're going to go there to shake that place up.
I asked him a couple topics that I thought would be part of your 30-second ads when we get into September, October, November. Let me ask you about one that I think that they might use against you, which is these Board of Deposit meetings. Democrats and even some Republicans privately complaining that you've not attended these Board of Deposit meetings. Why not?
Sure. Well, we have a great staff in the Treasurer's office, and one of the things I learned in the Marine Corps was the importance of empowering my team to be leaders. When we walked into the Treasurer's office, the office was scandal-ridden. It was not run in a fiscally responsible way. And in addition to that, up and down the office, there wasn't a level of professionalism and financial expertise. And so we injected and hired so many people with financial expertise, professionalism, and integrity in that office. And the gentleman who represents me on that committee, he is a CFO of our office. He did tax and bond work for over 8 years. He has a law degree from Cornell. He's one of the most intelligent, hardworking, disciplined, high-integrity people in state government.
Are you still watching what's going on in the Treasurer's office as you engage now in what is going to be a nationally watched race all the way through November?
As I said in the campaign, my priorities are jobs, jobs, jobs. In my life, my priorities are being a good husband, running the Treasurer's office, and then beyond that, this campaign. And I keep my priorities in order. I work long hours. I work 18, 20-hour days, but it's always first, my wife Alana, second, running the Treasurer's office, and third, the campaign.
Very good. Treasurer Josh
Jim,
Mandel,
always good to see you.
All right, we'll see you a lot through November.
Thanks.
And we will be right back here on Capitol Square.